Bless us and guide us in all of our actions, and may your Holy Spirit be with us at all times. For we place our lives in your hands, always and forever. In the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This shooting's gonna love
Let's go.
He left.
Did he really?
I think he left. He left last day.
Okay.
Got left.
All right.
Carry that around also.
Thank you.
Roll call. Absent is Councilman Mason, Councilman Lambert, Councilman Orgeron, and Councilman Thomas. I believe Councilman Robert's still here. There he is. He's not absent. Okay. We have no chairs additions. However, we do want to do a brief introduction of our new Director of Purchasing. I'm going to turn that over to Mr. Goldsmith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just wanted to introduce y'all to Jim Burris. He can wave, stand up. He is our new purchasing director. And just to give you a little bit of background, he is a CPA. In 1994, he started working with the legislative auditor as a financial compliance auditor. I was there about the same time, so I was able to work with Jim and see how great of a job he did over there. In fact, he did such a great job in financial compliance in 2004, they made him the comptroller and the CFO. And when you're talking about the legislative auditor who sets the standard and reviews the standard of everybody else, that's quite an accomplishment. In 2014, Jim moved to LSU, where he was the Assistant Vice President for Finance and Administration. And at that time, I was working at the Capitol and got to work with him again. So we were very glad when he decided to retire in 2022, about the time that our announcement went out for a procurement director. And besides his accomplishments in his career, probably more importantly, he was smart enough to marry a girl from Ascension Parish. He now lives in Prairieville, and he's actively involved with family and church, enjoys outdoor backpacking and coaching his children's sports teams at Butch Gore, Stevens Park, and Sandoval Park, but he does note that he is now retired. So he is no longer coaching, but we're very lucky to have him, and just wanted y'all to, you're going to be seeing a lot more of him now, and know who he is.
All right. Welcome, Jim.
Welcome.
All right. You all right?
Trying to find it.
Public comment. Anyone to speak on any item, please turn in a green or red card to Ms. Ashley. With that being said, we'll go ahead and start off the agenda. Item 5A, SSA Consultants update on the compensation study. Not Ms. Christelle, someone else.
Unfortunately, no. Or fortunately, depending on who you ask. I'm just kidding. So I'm Cody Soche. I'm the project manager for the compensation and benefit study. Well, I'm sorry, just compensation study for Ascension Parish. This is an update on our process. So it's been almost a year since we got started. So I wanted to give the committee an update on where we're at. What are some of the primary project goals that we've accomplished, and some preliminary high-level review of information at the end. So our primary project goal was to analyze the Ascension Parish government's compensation on an individual position basis and provide market data for each. This is more of an update to the original study that we completed in 2016. That study was a lot more foundational, so we were able to take what was built on that study and then just go back and re-review, look at each individual position again, and update it with new, fresh market data. So that's what we did. We compared the current salary ranges to the market data and determined areas that may need adjustment. Whenever we look at each individual position on that individual basis, we expect some to move, some not to move, because it's really just based on the position and the data. Following that, review the analysis with the Ascension Parish leadership in order to assist with implementation and provide additional guidance where appropriate. So Ascension Parish brought on a new human resources director, right sort of smack dab in the middle of this project, which was awesome and a great thing for Ascension Parish to do. So we did spend a lot of time working with her and then working with the administration to make sure that she understood the data and understood our process, so we were all sort of on the same page. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go along. So just as a reminder for our project methodology, we reviewed each position description as provided by Ascension Parish, including any revisions or new positions that would be potentially added, which sort of took place throughout the process. We had that initial batch of position descriptions in the fall of 2021, which we then used to compare to market data. Just a little reminder of what we look at when we're looking at job descriptions. We're focusing on duties and responsibilities, minimum qualifications such as education, experience, what is the level of supervision exercised, and then the independence of action. Those are sort of our primary comparison factors that we look at when we look at position descriptions. Each position was reviewed individually based on the above-mentioned parameters and was provided a specific compensation valuation. And as a reminder, this is not individual employee performance-based. This is just based on the position and market data and has nothing to do with whether or not an employee is effective or ineffective at their job. So just market data. So about our database, we use specific data to conduct compensation studies, which we use from the Economic Research Institute, which allows us to filter for a few different kind of key aspects. We can filter for diversified industrial market data, which includes both public and private data, which is great. We could also filter for government-specific data, which is nice whenever we're looking at government entities. And we're able to filter for regional specific data. So we're not pulling information from LA or New York or Seattle, Washington. So we're making sure that we're looking as much as we can as the apples to apples comparison and not pulling information from out of market. And it has over 11,500 different jobs and over 1,000 industries and 11,000 different regional locations. So you can get pretty specific, which is awesome and good for us. So project timeline, as I mentioned earlier, fall of 2021, we received the position descriptions and we completed the initial draft of data, our first initial review. In the winter of 2021, Ascension Parish hired a new human resources director, which we then conducted an initial data review with the new director. And then over the spring and summer is when we really fine-tuned all of that information. Based on feedback from Ascension Parish, any updated position descriptions, any revised position descriptions or additions, we really kind of fine-tuned and honed that information through that process. And then the summer and fall of 2022, we just completed an updated review of some of the positions filtered for government-specific data sets, just to make sure that we had all the information available to us. So we just completed that last step and provided that information to the administration. All right, some primary findings, some numbers. So about 103 of the 217 positions were below market value. And like I said, we conducted one of these studies in 2016. So it's to be expected that not all would be behind market valuation, only some would be. So of that, 282 of the 433 employee positions were unaffected, so 65%. 151 of the 433 employee positions were undercompensated based on the market data, that's 35%. 107 of the 151 employees had no change in pay as a result of the positions being moved to a higher labor grade because the employees themselves were already compensated at above the rate of the new labor grade, so there was no adjustment needed for that. And then so only about 44 employees will see any adjustment in pay, which totals to $91,126.08. So it's really a very small adjustment in the grand scheme of potential adjustments based on market studies. So really a lot of positions had to move a little bit. 103 of the positions had to move, but it's not a major sort of foundational change on a lot of that. So what's next? We're going to continue to provide support to the Ascension Parish government as needed in order to fully implement the study over the course of the next month or so into the existing classification plan or whatever the timeline is. So any support that's needed, happy to help, happy to answer questions as it moves forward.
All
Questions?
Right. Councilman Robert?
Can you go back one?
Yes, sir.
You have the three categories of the employees. We have the 151 that are uncompensated. And In the 107 of 151, you brought up the fact that these are the ones that were not affected because they were already paid more.
Yes, then where
So I
the
guess my
market
next
valuation
question-
would move them
yeah,
to.
my
Yes,
next
their current compensation level was already above that
So my
rate.
next question would be, do we have a number of employees that are already like that aren't listed here?
Well, if their position wasn't changing, then they're just staying as is status quo. So that would be the remaining 400.
So out of these 282 unaffected, out of those 282 unaffected, how many of them are over the,
Well, they're not over anything. They're just within their pay ranges.
I guess.
And their pay
I
ranges
guess
are
to
not
apply to
moving.
the same thing you're saying the 107 are.
No. So I'm trying to explain this a little bit better for myself. So of those 282 positions that are unaffected, that just means the market data came back and said that those ranges were fine. They didn't need to be moved. They're fine. The 151 positions that came back as below market valuation.
We need to pay more, but the 107, you're saying.
Yeah, so those individual employees that were within those positions, where their compensation was, when the range was bumped up to be in line with the market
Yeah,
data,
and
they
what you're
already
saying is
fell
that-
within the new range.
And
So
the
they were good to go.
107 are the ones that they would have taken a hit, but they were already above.
They would have not taken a hit. Their positions were under market value. So the position had to be updated to be in line with market value, but those individual employees were already being compensated at a good rate that fell within those lines. They weren't being overpaid for their current
I'm
position.
not saying they were being overpaid in any way, shape, or fashion. I'm
Yeah.
just saying those 107 weren't affected because the number, their salary already covered that gap.
They were already
And
within.
that's all I was asking, if they had that gap anywhere of those 282 employees.
No, because those ranges didn't move.
Okay, right.
Great, perfect. Sorry, I was trying to
Well,
track
no,
it and make sure
don't-
that I could
don't
answer
ask
your
the
question as
most
good as
clear
possible.
questions, but I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
no, I just want to make sure I got it.
Yeah, yeah, for
I
sure.
got your question answered correctly. But thank
right.
you.
Councilman Lawler?
Yes, sir.
Yes, oh, thank you.
you.
A couple questions.
Yes.
Are there specific departments that we noticed that there were people that were not either being paid as well as they should have been, or was there departments where people were being overpaid, basically?
Not overwhelmingly so. I think there were some departments that, as of this process, they had to go back and take a look at what their jobs were actually supposed to be doing, or how they wanted their jobs organized. I know that one of the groups that we had to look at as a part of this process, like a couple of times, was like the surveying group, because their position descriptions were not representative of what they were doing out in the field. So I know that there was some reorganization around that. They wanted to be more specific about who was a rodman and who was, doing this and doing that. So as a part of that process, we did do a couple of those kind of deeper dives where we had to go back and look. But as far as just general groups that were overpaid or underpaid, I don't think that there was any specific group that just jumped out as being this whole group, And that's probably because we did this in 2016. So if you hadn't done it, there probably would be, because, other places that we do this, and even here in 2016, other places that we've done this, some department directors tend to be better at getting their people raises than other department directors. Just a natural kind of, way of operation. But there hasn't been enough time, I think, between then and now for maybe that to have taken place as
Have we noted-
effectively.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
Yeah.
cut you off.
That's fine.
Have we noticed a difference between, to break it down in a different way, we talked about individuals that were below market value. Were these new hires? Were these long-term hires?
So as far as the individuals themselves, I can't speak to that. Just positions is what we look at, and then we go back based on the positions, and anyone that was underneath, I would have to have the spreadsheet of the payroll in front of me to answer that specifically, but any person that was below what needed to be adjusted for that market valuation, we would identify. Now, new hires would probably be likely candidates for that because they haven't had time to progress through their ranges. And if their range needed to be adjusted and moved up, you would probably see those people that are at the bottom of their pay range needing to be moved more aggressively.
Okay. One more kind of question along those same lines. Was there any differentiation between higher paid employees versus lower paid employees, finding that maybe the higher paid employees were below where they should have been in the market value, or whether maybe the lower paid employees? I don't know what the answer is.
I mean, some of the higher level positions were below where they should be, and if some of it's a fact of you being a government entity and having to compete in a world where executives have a lot of options, especially with industry in this general vicinity, which is another reason that we went back and looked at government-specific data as well, because we wanted to make sure that we kind of cut some of that out so we could make sure that we were having realistic expectations on all these things. Some of them, but a lot of them were across the board. You would see in just different positions, middle management, all the way down to the frontline guys. There was a difference in, I mean, 103 positions is a lot of positions. Almost half of your positions were below market value, so you're going to get a good swath.
A different line of questioning now goes more specific.
Yeah.
I kind of rail on this all the time, but transportation.
That's fine.
Where do we stand on our transportation department has been understaffed. We lost some people on the higher end. Some of the engineers, we're having trouble replacing those. It's been years.
Mm-hmm.
Where do we stand on that? Is that because we're not willing to pay what we need?
Yeah, some of the engineering positions came back low, and I think as a part of this process, we looked at creating transportation engineer series specifically, like a transportation engineer 1, 2, and 3, and then sort of pegged market valuations based on those, and they scaled up in certifications and experience as appropriate. Because I'm sure, as y'all know, engineers that come right out of college that don't have their PE and don't have any of those sort of higher level qualifications don't tend to garner a six-figure salary right off the bat, but it scales quickly. So as they get those certifications and then as they get those years of experience, that sort of stuff scales up really quickly.
So where do we stand with the transportation? Because look, my man Joey is, I don't know if he's here tonight, he is just overwhelmed. There he is.
Sure.
I'm sure
he is, yeah.
I know the people in that department are overwhelmed. They have been for years.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would hope that as a part of this process and as a part of having the transportation engineer whole pay thing set up and ready to go, that would alleviate some of those problems, because then you could target.
So is it ready to go? Is it?
The position descriptions are, I think, pretty good. I'm going to defer to Lucy on any of that, but.
Yeah, the transportation recruitment or lack thereof, and where we are in that process is really outside of the market study. Some of the positions are included in the market study because as we moved along since the last year, I think it was you actually that mentioned the transportation. We added those positions to be looked at to make sure that they were included in the analysis to ensure that we were correct from the get-go. So until they're actually approved positions on the classification plan, we can't recruit for them.
When will the administration bring those to us for approval then?
Well, this is the first step for that.
How long are we going to take for that?
Well, first we introduce it here, and then it goes to the next stage, which are the full council, if I'm not mistaken.
But we're not introducing anything right now, are we? Or is that what
Right,
it
this
is?
is the first step in that, right?
High-level update or review of the
I'm asking
information.
for like an introduction at the next finance meeting to get this moving, the transportation portion of it.
Yeah.
If y'all have that ready, give that to the administration, they can put on the next finance.
Yeah, I mean, we have the data.
We'll bring that back to the parish president.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah,
It's not,
transportation is
there's
a big
no,
deal.
yeah,
Yeah,
go for it.
that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I have a quick question. As we move to, and this, I don't know if this is directly for you or maybe a combination, but as we've moved this year to some contract employees and, we're looking at salary ranges, do we ever think about, are we going to ever kind of right-size our government? I mean, is there a point when we look at how many full-time employees we have, how many tasks we have, over a month, over a year, and see if we are right-sized for our workforce?
You are not the only person asking that question. We've been asked that by a few other places. This does not answer that question, so I want to be very clear.
How extensive is a study like that?
Probably a few years. And you got to shadow. You got to know what people are doing every day.
Okay.
It's a lot of in the ground in the dirt. And, you got to follow people. You got to know what they're doing. You got to understand their day-to-day activities. It's more than just to fill out a survey kind of thing, which you do start with a survey.
But an organization actually could do that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we could do that
Oh, you
ourselves if we knew how many tasks wanted to make.
Yeah, you can do it, for sure.
I see
Yeah.
Mr.
Well, and I can
Goldsmith
tell
wants to
you,
jump in.
we absolutely have those conversations when we do the budget process. That's one of Dawn's standard questions, what contract employees, what employees do we have? And in some cases, the employees roll off depending on the level of contract employees and contract labor. But that goes back and forth as well. Sometimes we're heavy with contract labor, the next year we're able to staff up. It just, it just depends. So it is a consideration, and it is something we look at.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you so much for coming tonight.
Thank you, and
Appreciate
thank you all for having us out tonight. Hope you all have a good evening.
All right, we're going to move to item 5B, approval of amendment number 1 to the contract with Multi-Studio LLC of Louisiana to include the following additional scope of work: construction documents phase service, permitting, procurement phase services, competitive bidding, and construction phase services for an additional amount of $48,000. The new contract amount is not to exceed $97,900. This amendment also revises the contract beginning date to July 1st, 2022.
Okay. Motion to approve.
Okay. I'd like to hear a little more about it. It's just,
Sure.
there's not a lot of detail in the actual documentation, so.
So, I'll start off. You guys have met Lexi before, Lexi Tinko, and she's the architect. She's the one representing Multi-Studios. I wanted to just give you a little bit of background. It worked, Jarius. But, if you remember, July the 11th, we came to you, we presented an overall plan for this, and that plan included hiring or entering into a contract with Multi-Studio and with Nicholls for less than $50,000. We brought it to you. It wasn't for approval. It was just to let you know that we're moving in that direction, and that before the end of the year, we would come back to you with a greater contract than that, because that's what it's going to take when we get to the bid stage. Lexi is at this point where she's almost ready to go out for bids, and it's time for us to renew that contract or extend the deadline on it and to increase the amount. So we knew at the time on July the 11th that this wasn't going to be enough to get us all the way through the bid process. We knew that it's going to take another $50,000. So that's what we presented in our plan. And, if you have some detailed questions, Lexi will be glad to answer those.
Yeah, so just some of the questions I had, Bill, were, and nobody else has to speak. I didn't want to jump ahead. I guess my question is, why are we backdating it is one question. And just what are the fees based off of? I don't see a lot of detail based on hourly and things like that. So I was just wanting to know more about that.
Sure. Do you want me to answer, Bill?
Yeah.
Okay.
The backdating, I thought that was the Nicholls contract. No, you're right. This is this one. Okay, sorry.
Oh, no problem. So, hi, I'm Lexi Tanko, Vice President with Multi-Studio and Project Architect on this project. To answer your question with regard to how the proposal is broken down, the initial proposal included a feasibility study, schematic design, and design development, and that was really to ensure that the existing Lemon Building facility would accommodate an early childhood education center with regard to Louisiana Early Learning Center, a Type 3 childcare center, as well as life safety, and then adding on some more detail from there, validating the construction costs to make sure that that would pencil out as well. And so what we did is the proposal includes a not to exceed, and we bill hourly. So that was the initial proposal, and then this amended proposal includes, so we've completed design development. The amended proposal includes construction documents phase, so that illustrates and describes further development of the approved design development documents, consists of drawings, specifications, This secondary amendment also includes permitting, so the architect will submit permit documents to regulatory agencies as required, to include City of Donaldsonville, State Fire Marshal, Parish of Ascension, and SHPO. And then, as Bill mentioned, the procurement phase will go out for competitive bidding on the project. And then it also includes construction phase services, so evaluation of the work during construction, reviewing shop submittals, review certificates of payment to the contractor. So I hope that answers your question.
Okay. So will that cover, this contract cover that completely, or will we?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And part of the reason I asked is because I noticed in the contract report, there's nothing been charged against the 49.9. So that's kind of why I was asking why it doubled. Just kind of asking for the basis on it.
Regarding the moving back the start date, I think the signatory part of that took a little longer than we thought. And they had some work that they had billed for July, I think it was July 16th through the end of the month. And that was before the contract was actually signed on August the 4th. So just as a housekeeping measure, we moved the start date so that would coincide with what we had as the invoices.
Okay. So maybe the contracts report, I can get you in a minute, Joel. Yeah, the contracts report showed 0. That was part of my question too. It didn't look like we had charged anything against it yet. So maybe that could be a typo. I'm not sure. But we can talk about it later. It's fine. Thank you.
Okay, of course.
Councilman Robert.
My assumption would be that the majority of that $50,000 to $48,000 would be for the drawings that you're about to do? Yeah.
That's correct.
Which would be why you didn't see any of that taken out, right? And your permit should be getting? Yeah, okay.
Councilwoman Casso.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to make a motion that we approve to move forward, please.
I think we had.
Did you
a
have?
motion From
I'm sorry, I didn't
Chase
catch it.
and a second by Councilman.
I don't know how I
Kane.
didn't, I don't know
That's
how I
okay.
didn't catch
That's
that.
okay.
It's
No
hard to
problem.
hear me over these colors.
Well, I apologize.
Any additional
Question.
questions? No? Any objections? Hearing none, that passes to the full council for approval. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Okay.
Item 5C, approval of cooperative endeavor agreement with the church in Sanama to utilize existing fill mitigation storage created through a parish drainage project in exchange for donation of property for regional storage on property located at 39171 Highway 72.
Me again, but, this is an exchange of property, it's an exchange of some detention. Mr. Derek Murphy with Quality Engineering, he'll go over the specifics of it, but it's actually a three-way deal where NWI, this is to help our situation on Highway 42. So they're giving us, Reverend Sturmer's giving us the space there to put a regional treatment plant, sewer treatment plant, which is going to help us in the Prairieville area, it's going to help us in the Oak Grove area. So, this is what this is all about. And again, Mr. Derek Murphy of Quality Engineering and Reverend Mark Sturmer of the Church of Ascension, Church of Sanama, if you have any questions. Maybe it is Ascension at one time.
I'll second.
We can just go to questions, and then if y'all want to speak into it after. Councilman Lawler.
Yeah, I mean, I have some questions about this. It's in my district, and I've talked to a lot of the property owners there. I understand that the drainage, the sewer portion of it is really more of a separate deal, that the parish is out of the sewer business. That this was originally NWI was going to make an agreement with the church, and they left us out of that. Is that kind of accurate?
Well, it's actually a three-way agreement. So NWI has an agreement with the church, and of course, they own the property, and so they're giving them a lease on that property to put the treatment plant. The parish is not really involved in that, except in the sense that it's something that we desperately need in that part of the parish.
Yeah. The other question I have, though, is about the drainage. The people that live there in that area now are already having flooding problems since the dirt was built up. There's no information really here, and I asked for this last week, and the information, I got some of it tonight. But as far as, is this going to benefit? Is this going to hurt them? Has HNTB or CSRS looked at this as part of their floodplain management? Is this even a project that they're aware of?
So well, CSR, I will tell you this, CSRS has been involved in this, and so, as far as the technical aspects, so I'll leave that to Derek, and also, I'm not sure you got that, but I had some questions, and part of that was related to this. Emailed that out earlier today, so leave this to Derek.
Today.
So to answer as far as drainage is concerned, so this piece of property is owned by the church, and the Barber Brothers Construction Company ended up using this piece of property for the entire duration of Highway 42 construction. With that, they left behind some of that dirt, and which is about 16,000 cubic yards of dirt between the natural ground as it was prior to them getting there and the base flood elevation. Once we started looking at the sewer on this piece of property and what do we needed to do to offset that mitigation and so forth, we started looking at different areas and how that additional mitigation would affect the area with the sewer treatment plant and what we needed to do. During that time, we started looking at from basically a floodplain mitigation standpoint. Muddy Creek had a very an improvement about 1.5 miles. And we looked at the amount of dirt that got moved out of Muddy Creek at that time, and we're looking at it was way in excess of the 16,000 cubic yards. During that time, it was brought to our attention that this might be an area that wanted to be explored as a detention area. What can be done? Is there a way that would the church consider donating or dedicating either property or right of way or servitude or so forth, and also to make sure that we maintain the floodway of Muddy Creek. During that discussion was if it kind of worked out where the piece of property that 7.3 acres, it could generate roughly about 40,000 cubic yards of mitigation based on the static water of Muddy Creek. That doesn't encompass the whole 7.3 acres because there are some pipelines, it's a different thing, so we didn't utilize the actual pipeline servitudes or anything like that, so this is above and beyond or leaving that out. Also, as part of that is once we do our design, we're about 14,000 yards because we're cutting down and sloping it and so forth. So it was about a dedication. Now, I can tell you there was some preliminary discussions and calculations. I don't think there was a full study on this area as being a full detention area at this time. But there was discussion with CSRS and those guys about would this be a good location? It's an inline type detention pond. It would hold back some water from downstream. So there was a good bit of discussion on that. And the church decided that in order to maintain, they wouldn't have to maintain it and so forth to donate the 7.3 acres.
So can you go over the net of what we're getting and what we're giving up? Have you got that?
So basically, the 7.3 acres includes Muddy Creek, it includes the ditch coming through, it includes some areas in the back, and it includes a frontage on Highway 42 to give you access to that tract of land. The remainder that's going to be left is about 7.7 acres of property for the church. So we're basically giving up half of the property in order to achieve what we're trying to achieve here. And so
And you're giving up a right-of-way, a floodway along Muddy Creek?
yeah, so all that's, none of the Muddy Creek right here has any servitude on it. So one thing you do get is you actually get a dedicated floodway that can be improved. You get servitude that it doesn't exist today of any sort. And so you can do there was some improvement that was supposed to be done in this area. They couldn't because they didn't have servitude, so that allows that project to come, in order to do those improvements. And so when you're looking at detention, mitigation, I feel that it would definitely offset any type of improvements in this area. These improvements would help the drainage of the area. Can I sit here and say we ran all these models and all that? No, I can't. But I can tell you there was discussions, and it was with CSRS, it was with others in the administration as well.
Yeah, part of that area is a lot of wetlands, I think. I think along the bayou,
So we do
Muddy
have
Creek.
we do have a wetland delineation. It's less than half an acre, it's about 0.4 acres. And it's mainly on the other side of Muddy Creek and as well as on Muddy Creek on the north side, near that lot 2A1A that we'll be creating. So those wetlands have been delineated. It's very minimal, believe it or not.
Okay.
But it is.
It-
So we provided that.
That area already floods, though.
Yes.
So I don't see how it's adding really detention in it.
So just looking at the static water of Muddy Creek, Aaron, basically, if you take that static water and you take it from there to natural ground, it's about 40,000 cubic yards. And that's outside the servitudes and so forth. So you can capture that much water based on the static water. You are right. It comes in, but if you sit here and do an inline type detention system in here, you can hold back some of that water and let it spread out for different storms. So what happens is-
But I'm saying it already does that.
It does that, but not all the way, because you're gonna basically be from the natural water to the natural ground. It doesn't do that, it's ground, so you can actually excavate that out and you basically get that back.
Is this going to help the people on the other side? Because the houses along that other side, in that neighborhood, since this project's been done, they have had more water going further into their yards and on the backside of it.
Anytime you can increase floodplain mitigation, anytime you can do some detention, it's gonna help. Now, again, I haven't ran regional studies or anything like that.
Oh, this is not a regional project.
I understand.
I'm just laughing. We talk about regional projects that are multi-parish. We talk about regional projects that are, this is not regional. And I just can't, we can't throw that term around. It should have a definition. And this is not regional. But I mean, this is a very limited thing. We don't have enough information right here to let us know if this is going to be beneficial. And, you know, we heard this all the time with the transportation studies, is that we got to get an outside firm to look at this. You know, we can't trust the developer's person, which I didn't always agree with if you're working with numbers, but this administration was very clear on that. We have HNTB that can look at this kind of thing. This should be looked at by them. We should have some numbers on this, not just we think it's going to provide a benefit, because I can tell you the people that live around it, they didn't know any of this was happening. There was no outreach to them. They are concerned about this. And right now, we're not hearing that it's definitely not going to hurt them. We're not hearing that it's definitely going to help them. They know that this area, when the waters come, it already floods. It already gets water in it. So I don't know what the parish is gaining by this. I think we need to look a little bit more into this. You know, I'm not opposed to it, but we don't have the information. And yeah, I got an email today. Yeah, I work all day. I sent an email last week asking for this information, and to get it today is not nearly enough time to make a decision on it. You know, I don't understand why that's always happening. And I didn't send it to you, Derek, but no, so no, I mean, I'm opposed to this right now. First of all, it's in finance. This needs to go to utilities and drainage also. So I think I'd rather see this move to drainage or utilities, because it deals with utilities and it deals with drainage. Should be on both of those. I mean, a CEA, I guess, has to be approved by finance. But I'd make a motion that we send this to. Okay. Yeah, I just make a motion that we send it, I guess, to utilities, since that's where this started, and then it'll go to drainage after that. And that by that time, we should have some more information on it and let us know the benefits. The drainage is the big concern.
It's on the drainage agenda for tomorrow.
Okay. Then we can go to drainage and then utilities. Well, we're going to have the information by tomorrow night. Probably not.
So can I just say one thing, Aaron, that the utilities, there's not really any utilities in this. It's the agreement between the church and NWI.
Well, I know, but y'all put this on the utilities agenda before, trying to get it through there. Right?
Can I ask a question, please? Because if they're going to be bringing more information to us, I have a concern that may be totally unwarranted, and I'd be happy to have evidence that is true. But every time there's a hurricane somewhere and there's a flood somewhere and there's a sewer plant and drainage, we have a problem. And we're talking about, in this case, having a sewer treatment plant and a drainage retention pond. do I have any reason that I should be worried, or any of those other neighbors there, that the rise in the drainage problem, the water coming up, will impact that sewer plant and shut it down, or have an escape of sewer into the drainage? I mean, it just doesn't sound like good bedfellows to me. So if I could get some clarification for tomorrow night on that, I would appreciate it, that we're not going to risk draining our sewer into our drainage or our drainage into our sewer plant and have a compounded problem.
Well, actually, we're trying to prevent that now.
Okay.
And that's what's happening on 42, but it's a good question. We'll come prepared for tomorrow night.
If you could address that, I'd appreciate it.
So, Ms. Terry, just so by DEQ and DHH standards, the sewer treatment plant has to be at 100-year elevation.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in this particular case, everything will be built to the 100-year elevation for this treatment plant. So it's adjacent to the drainage, however, that everything will be based on the 100-year to make sure that it doesn't have any issues.
And if we get a 500-year flood and the water's higher than 100-year, what are we going to do to protect that our drainage that's being utilized on the same property as our sewer plant doesn't encroach upon our sewer plant?
Well, you're going to have that situation whether this goes through or not, because either way, we have to do drainage adjacent to it. So it's going to be the same thing either way.
I'll just need some clarification, and hopefully my not engineering brain can see it. Maybe a picture would help.
And on our end, in 2016, actually, the company came in and, for us, we wanted to help the parish out all we can. And so all of this was to help the parish. And we did a one-page contract with the company, Barber Brothers, that, they went 5 years that tied up everything. It took all the dirt off 42, all the equipment, even the blacktop. Everything has been piled up there. I don't know if y'all went by and seen it over the years, but it was a mountain, and it didn't affect anything in all those years of that mountain that was sitting there since 2016 all the way to when they cleared it off about 2021, I think about 2020, 2021, when they cleared it off. And so our deal was, hey, use it. We want to see 42 get done. The parish needs it. We're strategic in where we're at. Same thing with the sewer and the parish. We met multiple times with the engineers and everything else, and they said, man, this will really help if we can get the temporary sewer there. And so again, this is us putting a church there, and on top of it, giving half the land away that we paid for, $1.3 million for that land, and we gave half of that away to the parish, or trying to, so that the parish would benefit from that. And so the sewer system, we were working with that because it was a desperate need in that community where they need that. And our land is positioned for it very well. And so, I just want to see I've been working with the parish since 2016, and we've had mountains of dirt up there for that long. And, and then going in, it took most of it off. And then there, to put the sewer system, and then we're willing to give that for even bigger detention pond. We're also digging a pond as well for a detention area until that pond gets done. I'm just saying we worked a long time, and we've been tied up for a long time, and so I would appreciate you guys helping us get through it. Okay. Derek, I had one more.
I was real quick. Certainly not against this. And when I talk to the neighbors over there, and I let them know that I'm not against it or for it, just we don't have the information. I know y'all been working on it for a while.
Yes, sir.
But for us not to have, none of us got information. I'm probably the only one that has any significant information on it. But for none of us to have information on something like this, on a drainage project, that I can tell you the people that live over there have had more water on their property and have called, and they weren't sure what it was about. Then they realized it was because of that property that they built it up. So they have noticed it. They just haven't said anything yet, and they've been really good neighbors about it, and they're not against this either. They feel just like me. They just want to make sure that this is going to benefit them and that they can make that decision. That's what this is about. We just need to get that information.
So, one thing I will say, they don't know if any additional water is based on, from this project at all either. They assume that, but they don't know, and no one here knows. And so I just want to make sure that's very evident as well. We can make speculations, but knowing that where that additional water, if it is additional water, it doesn't necessarily come from this piece of property.
I have a quick, you mind if I go, Joe? All right. Yeah, Derek, I just wanted to make sure, because, I agree with some of what they're saying, right? We've thrown in a different aspect to this property, and we certainly appreciate you guys donating it, Mark. So when you did the design of this, so we talk about subdivisions not putting water on anybody, capturing all the water, and I heard you talk about digging a pond. So when you did your calculations on this property, I'm assuming that detention's not included in the rain catch or the, is that correct? Am I saying that right?
So what we've decided, what we worked with administration on is we were going to go ahead, when we build this phase one, and we're using that term loosely, when we build this particular building, we're going to actually put in if the parish is not ready to do anything on the property, we're going to go ahead and do our own detention. And we're going to make sure we meet the code today, because we didn't want to lapse in timeline from the detention we needed to do based on code to the timeline that they would, that the parish would do anything with the property. So we're going to put in, and I know on some of the exhibits you see a temporary, we're putting in a pond. We're going to dig that at our own expense, the church is, and we're going to make sure we route the drainage to it, and we're going to make sure that from day one, our detention, that we're not putting any more water on anyone. That was the whole purpose of that. So there's not a lapse in time, because we're not sure what the timeline is. I mean, this may end up one day being used for recreation. We don't know. It's just 7.3 acres.
So just for clarification, the concrete you're putting down, you're going to dig a pond that's going to catch that runoff?
Yes.
And then everything else sits as it has for the last 3 or 4 years?
Correct.
And then at some point, we're going to have to decide as a drainage board if we're going to do a project with the donated land.
Correct.
And then the water treatment plan is something separate.
Correct.
Although it still has to be at a 100-year base.
Right. And the whole purpose with this was, we were concerned that if we donated or we signed the lease for the church and took out an acre out of commerce, we were going to need that property to do floodplain mitigation or do detention and so forth. And so that was the concern. So that's why the sewer kind of we were like, well, look, if we have to do all of this and we have to go and dig this entire property up, we can't put a regional sewer plant on here. And we're like, well, no, we think we can get it worked out. And that's why we went on and signed the lease. So because part of the DEQ permitting that's being underway right now, they're hoping to have the plan online. They're saying by the end of the year. I speculate it's going to be a little bit further in the next year. But in order to have that, DEQ needed to have the lease in place. And so we went on and signed the lease in good faith based on that. In order to, I know there's some areas we're taking most of Highway 42 onto this property. I think the new high school and so forth is coming here.
Okay.
And the new high school, the school board actually talked to me too, that they really needed to get this. And so that's why one of the things they're already behind. And so it went through and you guys permitted it, and it's actually
working on getting DEQ permit right now.
DEQ permit. And so that was because the new school's going in the area too, and that has to be done. And so the timing of it was, very crucial.
So I got 2 more questions. I'm going to go ahead, just based on my question and your answer about how it sits today and how you've accounted for it. You're going to put the detention in, or the retention pond, the temporary one, until we figure out what we're going to do with the backside of the donated property. I know, Joel, you rescinded your motion. I'm a second Chase's motion to approve it, the CEA. I mean, I think the other portion, that's just allowing you to donate the land. So, yeah, but you took it back.
Okay,
Yeah.
you made it after that?
Yeah, and I'm gonna go ahead and second it, but yeah, I do want to see the administration drainage.
And
have more on it
understand
later.
this, we have to, as soon as we get the CEA going, we're going to submit construction plans. It's going to have the drainage impact studies and all that kind of stuff in it from our site. The reason we haven't done that is because I don't have a CEA to tie it all back in, so we're stopped. And so they're wanting to go ahead and start construction, and we're here trying to get the project moving and go ahead and make the donation and everything right now.
Okay.
But the church wants to go ahead and, you've seen the signs are up already, and we're trying to move forward and start construction.
Joe, go ahead.
Ultimately, I think we all know it's going to be a great project to move forward, and we all agree on it. I have no issue with approving it tonight either. My main thing is, typically we'll yield to the councilman whose district it's in if he's having some of those issues. Is it on the agenda for drainage tomorrow? I mean, if it's already on the drainage agenda, would you feel comfortable if you had some time with them to sit down tomorrow before the meetings, get some of the things pegged out? Maybe we could put it on the next finance meeting after that? Because it shouldn't hold it up.
You can go to drainage.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You could get your questions to your answers there, maybe have some.
You're assuming I have a free day tomorrow, which I don't, but.
Is this going to hold it up if we put it off for the month? As far as any.
Like I said, we haven't submitted construction plans or anything because we're waiting to get this going, and the church doesn't want to commit to those construction
And that's
plans.
what I'm saying. I don't think y'all are waiting on it. I think we're all for it. If y'all just wanted to commit to get with him, and then we'll put it on the next meeting and move
Yeah,
forward.
we'll
with it. If
tomorrow
there's any
night.
time constraints, or if you're waiting to submit something, like I said, I'm good either way. I'm good either way. But whenever it comes to
Whatever we can
my
answer.
district, I'd appreciate them to.
Yes,
I've got a couple of questions, just.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
You're
okay.
next. And then,
So, I mean, we're moving that direction. I didn't have any of the answers. So I'm looking at the CEA, and the parish will utilize existing fill mitigation storage. What are they referring to? Where is that existing fill mitigation storage located? Will allow applicant to use existing fill mitigation storage.
So we had CSRS look at the Muddy Creek improvement, which created some credits, if you will, or created some mitigation. And they were, this was a whole lot more than the 16,000. If you take, I think 4 inches off the bank for the 1.5 mile, it's way more than what this mitigation would be. And so I think that's where it all came up. Like, look, you have plenty of mitigation credits that was created with the Muddy Creek. Plus, if there's a detention, if you do a mitigation project here, that's the whole reason of the donation of the property is, look, it's technically the parish's mitigation credits because y'all paid for the project. And then, so the offset there would be the donation of the land for that.
And also the public dirt, because we were using it for the state in the parish.
Yeah.
To allow them to stack it there.
So there is a provision and it didn't really work out this way, but it's basically if public works, if there's a public works, there's some leeway in the code, but in this particular case, because it was private property, it was a public works project on private property, it didn't meet the letter of that law. That's why we came up with the Muddy Creek and having the additional credits and so forth. So the credits were taken out with the Muddy Creek project by far.
Okay, and there's still credits remaining in it?
Yes.
Aaron, are you good?
Yeah, give me 1 second. Yeah, I mean, I'm good. We can talk about it more tomorrow night. I mean, once again, this just goes back to the standard issue of we get information 3 hours before a meeting on a really serious, it's not y'all's fault. I asked for this last week. To get something this big, this late in the game, just, once again, it's unfair to us. We all have jobs, and, I'd like to see the administration get on the ball with this a little bit better, that we don't get this at the last minute. So we can move forward with it for the time being. It'll go to, where will it go next? Drainage, and then maybe utilities, and then we'll move on from there.
Chase?
Yeah, just for clarification, I mean, the CA is for y'all to donate the acre. Y'all gonna put y'all temporary pond there based on however you have to build your property on a unified land developmental code. So it's up to the parish, and my guess is it's probably gonna be up to the Drainage Commission on if the parish actually goes in there and builds a retention area on either side of this canal, right?
Yes.
I mean, we're not,
So it'll be the parish to do whatever they want to, per se.
right, we're not actually gonna start digging here on the parish until we approve it, via Drainage Commission and things like that. Right now, y'all are just dedicating the property, and y'all will put a temporary pond there.
And per the CA, we are allowed to get on there and put a temporary
Okay.
bond in order to make sure that we don't, we meet all the letters of the law based on the Unified Development Code.
And then the other thing was the Long Muddy Creek. So giving that was the start of getting access for the parish to be able to use that and do whatever they want with it, as well as frontage that we also gave up as well. So,
Thank you.
Okay, well, I have a motion and a second, so do we have any objections? I'm still willing to let the CEA go ahead and pass.
Well, I mean, our action doesn't, it still has to go to the full council, and it still has to go to drainage tonight, so we can still look at it more. That's why it's not a big deal. And like I said, I'm not against it. It's just lack of information early on.
I agree.
Yeah, y'all's motion's
So
up, so
we're
we're
good.
good.
Okay, so no objections?
No.
All right, well, hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval, but I guess will also be discussed tomorrow night in drainage.
hey, thank you guys. I appreciate y'all.
Thank
y'all. All right.
Thank y'all.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Mark.
Item 5C, approval of cooperative endeavor agreement with the Church of, I'm sorry, we just did that one. Approval of amendment number 1 to the cooperative endeavor agreement with Nicholls State University to include a comprehensive business plan to the original scope of work for an additional $50,000 and to extend the contract term through December 31st, 2023. The new contract not to exceed amount is $99,000.
Okay, so tonight we have Mr. Terry Bro. He's
Mr.
the
Dawson.
Vice President of Finance for Nicholls State University.
Mike.
Sorry. Tonight, I have Mr. Terry Bro representing Nicholls State University. He's the Vice President of Finance for Nicholls State, and he'll answer any questions you need about the contract. As I said, this is part of the overall plan that we put forward on July the 11th.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
I got a motion by Councilman Robert, second by Councilwoman Casso. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the council for full approval.
That's good.
For full approval, yeah. Item 5E, request for approval to submit an application for the 2022-2023 Local Government Assistance Program and for the 2022-2023 Community Water Enrichment Fund. Ms. Romina, how are you?
Doing good, how are you? Okay, it's approval to submit the 2022-2023 Local Government Assistance LGAP application and the Community Water Enrichment Fund, and authorize Parish President Clint Quentmore to sign and execute all documents pertaining to this application, or Mr. Patrick Goldsmith, CFO, for financial documents.
All right, I had a motion by Councilman Robert, so I'm gonna give Councilman Cagg the second. Any objections? Any questions? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. Item 5F, approval of acceptance of the fiscal year 2022 State Homeland Security Grant in the amount of $58,765.42, and to authorize Parish President Clint Quentmore to sign and execute all documents pertaining to this application and/or Chief Financial Officer, Treasurer Patrick Goldsmith for financial documents.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Cagnolati, second by Councilwoman Casso. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. 5G, approval of acceptance of fiscal year 2022 Emergency Management Performance Grant in the amount of $44,888.14, and to authorize Parish President Clint Quentmore to sign and execute all documents pertaining to this application and/or Chief Financial Officer, Treasurer Patrick Goldsmith for financial documents.
So moved.
Motion by Councilwoman Casso, second by Councilman Robert. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. 5H, approval of the Inter-Departmental Agreement for the transfer of a mass casualty unit from Oaep to Fire District 1 to be used as an emergency response vehicle as needed.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilman Cagnolotti. Any objections? Any questions? That motion passes to the full council for approval. Thank you, Rachel. Oh, that's not it. Stay here, Rachel. 5I, approval of amendment number 11 to the contract with All South Consulting Engineers for grants management and disaster recovery project management activities for an additional amount of $112,000 into Task 4 waterway debris. The new total contract amount shall not exceed $1,102,100. You want to give a little bit of explanation? I mean, I don't.
This
I'll
is,
make a motion, but yeah, they
I'll second.
Okay.
this is a OEP contract that we have with All South. All South is working with Ron and DPW. This was just for the waterway debris removal after Hurricane Ida. So Jared was working very closely with Ron and their crew to get this, this job done. So I'm gonna let Jared speak a little bit of the specifics on the contract.
No, that's it. I appreciate it, Rachel. I mean, it really is just an amendment to the existing contract. Our contract is kind of multifold. This is specific to the waterway, just the task force. It's adding additional funding to complete that work. We're in the FEMA stages now. Obviously, the work's been done, and it's really just the reviews with FEMA on that process.
You getting us more money, is what you're telling us?
That's the plan.
All right, sounds great.
That's the plan.
I had a motion by Councilman Melanson. Yeah, I'm gonna get you. And a second by Councilman Lawler. And Chase, what's your question?
On the FEMA reimbursement, do we feel like we have a timeline for that? Is that going to take us 12, 18, 24 months?
Yeah, the million-dollar question. That's what everybody asks. But they don't publish timelines. Rachel can tell you, we've started to see some money coming back in, kind of across the board on several of the outstanding items, whether that be from the initial roadway debris removal to the waterways. We have gotten some good indications that a lot of the waterways are in their final reviews right now, which is good news because that means it's passed most of the big hurdles. So that's good. That's good. We don't have obligations yet. But.
If I'd have guessed, we were one of the most proactive parishes in the area.
Oh, absolutely. Especially waterway debris removal operation, extremely proactive. So you were leading the way really in that effort. Way back when, we discussed this in a few of those PowerPoints, but you've seen some of the parishes around you now kind of come on board after you all and really undertake those same efforts. So you are leading that charge. I would be very, very proud of what we all did here.
Okay.
Thank you, Jared.
Yep.
And Rachel.
Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes to the full council for approval. Thank you.
Thank you.
5J, approval of amendment number 1 to the master services contract with Jana King to include 3 additional locations in West Ascension for an additional amount of $70,956 for a new contract not to exceed amount of $1,036,172. Motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilwoman Casso. Mr. Melanson, a question?
Yeah, Mr. Compton was laughing at me putting on this tight jersey, so he's going to walk up here and answer a
Let's
question.
ask him some tough questions. He deserves it.
I can't breathe. Hey, so I do have to ask. So we're at the $1 million mark. Do we feel like we're saving money? And if we're not saving money, if we are spending a little bit more money, do we feel like it's a better product?
Absolutely. That answer is absolutely.
Okay.
I have gotten 0 complaints since we've been up and running with Jana King servicing our buildings. We tried to fill positions and couldn't. We tried to supplement with temporary staff and couldn't. Currently, we are using Ruth House to help on the west side because I have 3 custodians, Yogi, Andrea, and Craig Tomplay, who's full-time at Lamar Dixon. So, we are struggling to keep our buildings clean, but Jana King is doing a bang-up job. And yes, when we sat down and talked with finance about our budget for next year and whether we wanted to add 6 more staff or just add buildings to our Jana King contract, I said it's a very easy decision. It's very easy because the work we're getting is splendid.
All right. Thank you.
Councilman Lawler?
Yeah, just a quick question, not really, I mean, it's on topic, but different side of the river. A while back, Michael, you may be able to answer this also, we talked about, there's a bathroom around the walking track at Lamar, Dixon, around the ponds. Was that ever added?
That's a complicated question that I don't know the answer to because
Just about a bathroom.
We've-
It's not complicated.
we've come to an agreement with Lamar Dixon on responsibilities, and that bathroom is now the responsibility of Lamar Dixon. Lamar Dixon has a contract with Jana King that I don't know if that one was added to their contract or not, but I can certainly look
I'll
into
ask
that.
Kyle. That's okay.
I just don't know the answer.
Yeah, not a problem.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any questions? No more questions, any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. 5K, approval of amendment number 1 to the contract with Lifehouse for skilled laborers for Recreation Department projects to add an additional $100,000 for a total contract not to exceed amount of $149,500.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilman Melanson.
I have a quick question for Mr. King.
Okay.
To elongate this meeting. Do we have specific projects and do we have project managers to manage these people?
Yeah, we do have specific projects. So basically, they've been doing a lot of painting lately. They're going to be putting out, when we bring in all the engineered wood fiber to redo the playgrounds, they're going to be assisting with those projects. And so our assistant director, Michelle Tomplay, and our supervisor for Jeff Sanders are managing their projects.
Just what I need to know. Thank you.
All right. Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes to the full council for approval. 5M, approval of CEA between West Ascension Recreation Sports Programs and the Parish of Ascension for West Ascension Sports
Motion to
Programs.
approve. Second.
Motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilman Melanson.
Oh, you did skip
You skipped one, L.
You skipped L.
Okay, I'm gonna go back to that one. So this is 5M. Can I do that, Ashley? Thank you. All right, any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. I'm going back to item 5L, approval of.
Motion to approve. Second.
All right. I had a motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilwoman Casso. Any objections? Hearing none, the motion passes to the full council for approval. Thank you, Michael. Item 5N, approval of amendment number 1 to the master contract for professional services with ICE Sales and Service LLC for SCADA support service and maintenance utilities department.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Yeah, I was going to ask, why does this one not have approval, like dollar amounts? I might need to, just in the description, I'm just asking. And I must have not looked at this one the other night, so. What is the amendment for? Is it for additional?
It's a renewal of a yearly contract.
Okay.
ICE Controls, they're the group that built the SCADA system for the water plant and the water system. And it's a yearly contract for them to maintain and do services required.
So
50,000 not to exceed annually.
Okay, it's just a 50,000. Okay. I just didn't look at the detail. Usually it's in the details of the item, so. Can I get a motion in a second?
Yeah, I made a motion, and who made the second?
Motion by Councilman Melanson, second by Councilwoman Casso. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval.
Thank you.
Item 5O, approval of substantial completion Lincoln Builders of Baton Rouge, Lamar Dixon Expo Center expansion.
Motion.
Motion by Councilman Cagnolati, second by Councilman Melanson. You got a question?
His question is for Mr. Goldsmith. What can this council do via ordinance or whatever it takes to remove substantial completion items off every single agenda? And like, there has to be something to where we can bundle these together. Because I've always felt like this is, if it takes 10 seconds or 20 seconds to read, it's a waste of time.
We've actually been having those conversations about what exactly does the council have to approve from change orders all the way to substantial completion, because we know it does take a lot of time. And so we're trying to figure that out. We've been having a series of meetings. We've been meeting with our attorneys to try to see what can we do to streamline so that you don't have to sit through AA or GG items on the agenda, and they're all just very repetitive. And with substantial completion, there's not a lot you're going to do with that anyway. So we're going to hopefully get back with you in the next couple months with an answer.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. 5P, approval of amendment number 1 to the contract with Trash Rangers of Louisiana Commercial LLC to include a specific language to comply with grant requirements to collect $75,000 to support the improvement of drop-off recycling. This service is already included in the original contract dated September 1st, 2022. Letter of intent needed to move forward with grant also include in attachments. Mr. Goldsmith.
This language was requested by the entity that's giving us the grant. We get $75,000 for a recycling center on the west side. So they just simply wanted this language in there to ensure that we properly disposed of or actually properly recycled the materials and didn't dispose of them.
Okay, and we're going to get money back for that?
We're going to get $75,000 by putting this language in.
All right.
For the west side to have, and we've already started looking at the area. It should be a really nice recycling center on the west side.
Motion by Councilman Robert, second by Councilman Melanson. Any additional questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. 5Q, approval of supplemental agreement number 1 to the CEA between the City of Baton Rouge, East Baton Rouge Parish, and Ascension Parish government for debris removal in Bayou Manchac to add an additional $420,000 to the amount of the agreement, bringing the total amount to $1,920,000. Motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilwoman Casso. Mr. Melanson, question.
How's this divvied up, Patrick? Who's paying what?
So this is part of the total debris removal, waterway debris removal. As part of that, we had the city of East Baton Rouge Parish piggyback with us since we had already done all the work. So we had set aside $1.5 million in the contract for them to, for us to do the work. We would pay for it. They would reimburse us. It turned out there was more, so they were willing to give us the extra $400,000 for the $1.9 million of work. The mayor has already signed off on their portion. So if we do this, we just up the reimbursement we get for the work that we've already done.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, I have a motion and a second. Any objections? Hearing none, a motion passes to the full council for approval. 5R, approval of amendment number 7 to the management and operating agreement with Big Events LLC for the concessions catering at Lamar Dixon Expo Center to extend the contract term through December 1st, 2022 in order to complete the RFP process.
I want a motion to approve it, but I want to be clear that if you read the actual contract, and I talked to Kyle about this today, it's through November 1st, not December 1st. The actual contract, and Kyle was good with November 1st.
I say that again?
If you read the actual contract, the attachment, it's extending it to November 1st, not December 1st. Like the agenda has December 1st, I think it was just a typo, and it's supposed to be November 1st. I just didn't want people to say that Dow was misleading them by reading that when the contract is actually November 1st.
November 1st
of 2022.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is just an hourly rate, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh.
May I comment?
Sure.
Okay, so right now I'm doing an RFP that doesn't close until November 10th.
Okay.
So if you do this through November 1.
Oh. Kyle probably didn't know that then.
Now, I mean, what I am seeing in the verbiage is that it's through November 1st. So I guess it's more of a verbiage of define what's through November 1st. But I get what Jim's saying.
Yeah, so why don't we'll amend the actual amendment to make it through December 1st. And then I'm glad you brought that up.
Okay, so I have
Yeah, I'll second that.
So an amendment to change it to December 1st, Councilman Lawler, and a second by Councilman Melanson. Any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. 5S, approval of the entity state agreement with DOTD for the US 61 Super Street, Nell Street, and Church Point, US 61 Ascension Parish State Project H.015 and 100. Motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilman Cagnolotti. Any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. Approval, 5T, approval of the entity state agreement with DOTD for the US 61 Super Street, Corner View, South Papera, US 61.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilwoman Casso. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. 5U, approval of the entity state agreement with DOTD for the US 61 Super Street, Lowe's at LA 44 roundabout.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve, Councilman Lawler, second by Councilman Melanson. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. 5V, approval of amendment number 1 to the master contract between Ascension Parish Government and BFM Corporation LLC for surveying services to extend the current contract term through October 1st, 2023.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Cagnolotti, second by Councilman Lawler. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. 5W, approval of amendment number 1 to the master contract between Ascension Parish Government and Brian Hammond and Associates for surveying services. Motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilwoman Casso. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. 5X, approval of amendment number 1 to the master contract between Ascension Parish Government and Earl and Associates.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilman Melanson. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. 5Y, approval of amendment number 1 to the master contract between Ascension Parish Government and Quality Engineering and Surveying. Motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilman Melanson. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. AA, contract report for the month of September 22nd.
Wait, we missed one. Z.
Nope. It's not on my printout. Yeah, go ahead. All right, 5Z, approval of amendment number 1 to the master contract between Ascension Parish Government and T. Baker Smith LLC.
Second.
Motion by Councilman Lawler, second by Councilman Cagnolotti. Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes to the full council for approval. That's okay, Ashley. I didn't mean to say that out loud, I'm sorry. AA, contract report for the month of September 2022. Again, this was provided ahead of time. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions about any of the contracts. I'll get with you on the one that didn't have the amount. I guess some has been charged. Did you look at it?
We believe nothing's been expended, but we'll double check. We'll get
Okay,
you that.
because they were talking like they've already billed some stuff and needed to.
I think we just haven't been billed yet.
Okay, so maybe they have done work and they knew they
may
were
have
going to
done
need
work,
more.
we just haven't received any invoices, and that's what we'll double check for tomorrow.
Okay, so.
We'll get you that info tomorrow.
Okay, that sounds good. All right, we'll move to finance. Item 6A, presentation of the 2022 amended and 2023 budgets. I'll let Pat go ahead and go through this. Oh, look, never mind. Go ahead. Explain to us what we're doing here.
Absolutely. We're here to present the parish president's 2022 amended and his 2023 proposed budget. We're going to do something a little bit different. We're going to actually do a PowerPoint presentation, give you a little bit of background, a little bit of information. I know it's late, but it's not too long. But before we start, just wanted to say that a lot of time and effort went into creating the budget. I mean, obviously, it's a large document. It's very involved. And just want to thank the finance staff, department staff, the administration for all the hours, especially Dawn Caballero, because without her, there is no budget. She put most of what you see together. She had countless hours of analysis, balancing things. She organized the 30-plus meetings we had with departments and the administration, also led the effort with the change in capital reporting. So just want to give her credit for that, and also Tony Orso for doing the capital side. So all of the charts you see in there for the capital, she spent a lot of hours and a lot of overtime making sure we had those done in time. Also, we had Juancita Babin and Linda Timmons also helping out in a lot of the different areas. So just wanted to give a shout out to everybody and thank the administration, because we spent a lot of time with them trying to get this finalized so we could present it to you today. And again, this is going to be at a high level. We're not going to get into the weeds because this is just the presentation of the budget. Y'all will have plenty of time between now and when it's passed to ask lots of questions, and we'll talk at the end about kind of the process and the path moving forward. Just first, I want to just brag a little bit on the finance department. When you talk about metrics and what shows the quality of the budget and our financial accounting of our dollars, receiving the Distinguished Budget Presentation Award and for 11 consecutive years and receiving the Excellence in Financial Reporting, that's a great outcome indicator. So that's something we're very proud of, and that budget award is a very short list. I was kind of surprised when I saw how few people actually get that award. So just want to give a shout out to the staff for that. Now, briefly, just want to go over the timeline, because I think this is important for us to understand where we've been and where we're going. First, all of this is driven by our charter and state law. So the Local Government Budgeting Act, RS 39-1301, starts where we have lots of requirements for the format, the timing, some of the processes, but also our charter, Article 7, Section 7-01, starts the requirements that we have for the budgeting. So in July through October, finance staff started working with the departments and administration to try to craft the budget book. Those were the 30-plus meetings I mentioned. And that all led us to here today, October 10th. And believe it or not, this is early, so the actual deadline for presenting the budget to the council is October 17th. It's at least 75 days before the beginning of a fiscal year. So to make this a reality and get it done early, it took a lot of hours. That's why you're getting it presented to you today. I now understand when I was sitting on the legislative side of the Capitol and the governor would walk in the day it was due with his budget packet, I understand now why they walked in with it, because the time to put it together and the time to print takes a while. We also have to do public notice and notice in the official journal. That has to be 10 days prior to public hearing, and that would be on November 6th, because typically the council has the public hearing and adopts the budget at the last council meeting in November, because the deadline for passage is December 1st. If the council does not pass, then it just goes into effect, what was presented. Just another slide to just give a little bit of background and perspective. This is the parish population growth since 2010, and 19.7 is a tremendous growth with an average annual increase of 1.65. So that kind of gives you an understanding of why the budget has grown, why the revenues are growing, and we are one of the fastest growing parishes in the state.
Hey, Pat, real
Yes, sir.
quick, can you go back to that timeline real quick?
Yeah, sure.
So we don't have to go all the way back. When it says October 17th, parish president to submit balanced budget to the council.
That's the deadline per the ordinance that we had to present it by the 17th. We're presenting it early on the 10th, and we do that at the finance meeting, so we could have waited until the 17th, but
I was just reading the wording. I didn't know if the balanced budget was different. This is
a balanced budget, yes.
That's it. Thank you.
The next slide gives you an understanding of where our revenues come from. And so we went to the 21 actuals because that's the latest time period we have of actuals. And you can see that most, 67%, comes from taxes. The taxes are made up of sales tax, property tax, the franchise, and beer tax. And that brings in an overwhelming amount of the $47 million that came in that year. The next largest, the 9%, the $13 million, is miscellaneous. And that includes a lot of the enterprise funds, its service fees, its water revenue, sewer fees, things like that. Intergovernmental grants is the next category. That's, grants we're receiving from, HMGP, CDBG, the federal government. Intergovernmental, that includes things like the administrative fee that we charge to the departments to do the administration, parish transportation, state revenue sharing and fire insurance rebates. And then obviously it gets much smaller from there with bonds proceeds, licenses, permits, and fines. And then just to give you an idea of the taxes, a breakdown, just looking through the last several years, obviously sales tax is the most of that category. You look in 2021, you see that jump in sales tax, and we have seen that continue. Now, those dotted lines, we always do this when we're showing the existing budget or the proposed budget because, there's uncertainty in there, and we have always been conservative when we forecasted. So we would expect that the sales tax by the end of 2022 will be, probably higher than this, but just to be conservative because you never know what's going to happen at the end of the year, and we don't want to budget money that we would have to then, maybe make cuts at the end of the year. So it's very conservative. The ad valorem tax has been going up as well. And then those other taxes are a very small amount, around $2 million. All right, now this gets into seeing the whole picture of kind of what the budget lays out. I know there's a lot of numbers here, and again, we're not here to get into the weeds, but want to show you some of the big changes, where the money is going, because we were asked to, talk about some of the big movements. So this breaks down, starting with the 2021 actual, so you can see what we actually spent in 21, compared to that 2022 original budget, in that reddish color. Then you've got purple is the 2022 amended that you would be actually adopting, and then the 2023 proposed budget. So the first thing, just talking about the general fund, the first thing you'll notice in the 2022 original jumps drastically to the amended budget, and that is really because of the water debris removal from Ida. There was a lot of $18 million that was spent on that in total from all of that, so that accounts for the majority of that increase. You'll notice, though, that when we get to 2023, the general fund is pretty close. It's only about $2.4 million above what the general fund was in the original of 22. There's a couple reasons for that. One is actually the finance department, because as we've discussed, we've added different things to that. We brought in legal, we brought in project management, we brought in some of the IT functions with the GIS and the data analytics, and also we've moved animal control into the general fund. So that accounts for most of that. The special revenue, if you look, it was $73 million in the original budget, and it dropped to $64 million. And so there was a significant drop, and a lot of that is related to contract payments, and you probably hear us say a lot of times, supply chain issues, trying to get projects moving, that has been an issue. So contract payments did go down significantly, but they go back up in 2023, but not to the level they were in 2022. So again, trying to be, fiscally responsible and budget what we think is really necessary. Next, the enterprise fund, you'll see that the original was 16.3 and it's 16.8 in the amended for 2022, so not much change there. There is an increase. You'll see up to 25.5 in 2023, and the main reasons for that, one is the water sector grant. So on the west side, we're going to spend more money on the utilities on that side, so that's a significant increase. The parish insurance increased. I think everybody saw that happen after Ida, so that was a significant increase, and then also Lamar Dixon did have another grant. So that really accounts for the total operating budget and those movements there. As far as the capital budget, as usual, you'll see the 2022 original drops dramatically when we get to the amended. That's because the projects that we were not able to complete or are going to be carried forward into next year or were multi-year will come off. And then in 2023, those jump up again. And that increase is really due to the rescue funds, to the ARPA funds. We're going to have a lot of transportation projects that, that $10 million that we talked about, and then also about 7.3 in recreation projects. So that accounts for most of that increase from the 78 to the 99. The next slide just gives you a historical comparison, and again, you see those dotted lines so that you understand kind of where the existing budget and the proposed budget, and it's just exactly what we just talked about. You've got that huge jump in capital from the projects that we hope to get done next year, and hopefully we can get a lot more done with things maybe clearing up with supply chain issues and moving forward better with projects. And you see the 30.8 to the 32. So you see that slight increase in the operating. The
Hey,
next
Pat,
slide.
Real quick?
Sure.
Go back one. So would it be safe to say, just for the public's knowledge, that 100 million is projects, we're taking what we didn't spend this year, adding it to next year?
Yes, and
just-
you'll see those detailed out in the back of the budget in the
Okay.
capital section, so you can see exactly what we're trying to accomplish in 99, and a lot of those just roll forward because we couldn't get them done
Okay.
in 2022.
Thank you.
So the next slide, just want to kind of get everybody an understanding of where we spend our operating funds. And so the largest category is general government. And it is a large category because it includes the judicial, it's got the courts, the clerk of courts, justice of the peace, it's got the coroner, legislative, as well as all the administrative functions. So when you think of general government, you probably think of those administrative functions, but it has a lot more than just that. It's more than just finance and purchasing. Lamar Dixon is also in there, as well as maintenance and the insurance fund. So it's a significant part of the expenditures. The next is Public Works. Drainage is about 18%, the 24.5 million. The next is Health and Welfare at 16%, and that includes the health unit, the mental health unit. It's actually got the building and planning, the Council on Aging, it's got utilities. The next largest chunk is Public Safety, and that includes the jail and OEP. And then you just keep going. And this slide is, I think, at least for the legislature, the members found it useful because people ask, what are you spending money on? This helps you give an understanding because I don't think there's anything on here that anybody could disagree with. These are really good expenditures, and it helps to show where the dollars go and the public purpose that they serve.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sure.
I'm going to assume that the Registrar of Voters is also in that general government category.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just some high-level items, just want to highlight of what's included in the budget. Obviously, the maintenance of our buildings and planning. We've been working on project management. We've been working on actually solid lists of what our maintenance is going to be and trying to track those through the year. So we tried to have a really comprehensive maintenance plan. This year, we put in 7% for COLAs and merits. As y'all know, the inflation is hitting, the cost of living is going up. I don't know if you've seen, but the last I heard, the Social Security Administration was talking about a 9.6% adjustment this year. Pretty significant. The EIC, which is the Employment Cost Index with the Bureau of Labor Statistics, is hovering around 5% for government. That's just salary increases over the last year. So obviously a lot going on with that. And we'll be bringing you plans for those by the end of the year. So it'll be time for the COLA and to start talking about merits.
Okay. Hey, Pat, real quick, I got
sure.
a question from Councilman Caglin.
I was going to ask you to break down what is COLA and what is merit in that 7%. Do you have that, or?
We didn't break it down. We just said we think if you say maybe 4% for COLA, 3%. That was kind of a rough guide. Okay. It wasn't anything in stone, but I think that's kind of where we felt. We were trying to look last year in terms of the performance adjustments, what they averaged out to, because it was up to a maximum of 4%, but obviously it's not going to be 4. Not everybody got the 4. So if you figure that's up to 3% just a budget to make sure, and then the COLA of 4, and it could be more, and we know that, and if it is, we'll just have to sit down and make sure we scrub the budget and make sure it's all available.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
We talked about the funding for the West Bank Recycling Center. That's an exciting thing that's in here. $5 million grant for the West Bank water plant, another exciting thing. We talked a lot about equipment for West Ascension drainage, the continued progress on the Early Childhood Learning Center. I know some of y'all were there last Thursday. It was very impressive. The facility, the progress, the vision is very impressive. So money in there to continue that. We're letting the sheriff do the maintenance on the jail. We've had lots of discussions on that, so we included that in the budget. We have a lot of investments in technology. Obviously, we've done that in the past, and we're going to continue. And then the capital plan, the 5-year capital plan, including the revenues this year. And it's got significant capital investment. It's got the drainage projects, the road construction project management. Oh, that's just something I wanted to highlight too, is we have the drainage project management as well as road construction project management this year. We have the ADAPT and the Move Ascension. We've also tried to put a focus on finding more grant opportunities. Our grants department does a wonderful job of compliance. It is a full-time job. We were audited last year on 2 grants, and it took up 3 carts of binders just to provide the documentation to the auditors. And we passed with flying colors, but it's amazing the documentation we required. So we're looking for entities to help find those grant opportunities to free us up for the compliance.
Okay. Got a question from Councilman Robert.
You were talking about the different cost of living and the different expenses in that sense. I'm sure you're aware that the new jobs report from the Fed came back and unemployment is at a low. Are y'all prepared to handle the financial burden of that? Because, I mean, that's the Fed's going to increase all the rates, which is going to affect all of our stocks and all of that stuff. Have you considered that?
You mean in terms as the
unemployment is going actually down, so more jobs.
Sure.
Which is going to hurt the Fed and all that stuff as far as all the rates. So I didn't know if we were...
We actually take all of that in consideration when we're doing the budget. We actually met with our financial advisor.
Because this was like 2 weeks ago they made that announcement. I think it was like 2 weeks ago they announced.
Yeah. Yes, and no, and we're having those conversations because those significantly affect the budget, because whether we like it or not, they do mark to market. They make us, if our investments go down, we do government securities. We're not going to sell them, but they still make us show what the market would bear, which decreases those.
And I mean, in the housing market with your cost of living and everything else, it's going to increase that because you can't even...
And so we're also very aware of what that could do to salaries. We experienced that last year. And we did the best we could, and I think that's going to be part of the market study as we go forward. I think that's part of what they were trying to capture. So we do know that because of the current economic situation, things could change again next year. And I think with our conservative revenue projections, I think we have a little bit of room that if we need to, we would be okay.
All right.
Just real quick, the capital improvement plan, we mentioned that's included in the draft. And again, it includes the revenue source. So last year, we projected out for 5 years what we thought the cost of those particular projects would be. This year, we included what revenue sources, so that we can see that if we're short in year 4, we can start trying to focus on either more grants, more federal dollars, more state dollars, so that we can get that picture. And I know we've had that talk on Move Ascension, that, you know, we will run out of dollars before we finish these projects. Drainage, there's going to be more projects than we're going to have dollars for when you look in the long term. So this will help give us a better idea, and it also helps prioritize. And again, I know we've had this conversation that this capital outlay plan, it's just a plan. And it's, you know, for 2023, we have the projects that we're going to accomplish, but after that, those are just a plan moving forward. And we've asked that if y'all have any comments, any suggestions, please let us know. I think we even talked about that as strategic planning. This just gives you an idea of the categories of that $99 million we talked about earlier in the capital improvement plan. And obviously significant investments in Move Ascension, East Ascension drainage with, you know, moving forward with the ADAPT, as well as many other things. In that park construction all the way at the bottom, you see that infusion of ARPA funds to help them with a lot of the improvements they're trying to make. So what's next? What's the next steps moving forward? Well, it's the time for y'all to review and ask questions. I know talking with the chairman, I think he was discussing maybe trying to organize your comments or your questions, kind of like was done last year with when we had Chair Cagnolati was doing that. So we look forward to those. I think last year y'all had some great comments. You had great suggestions, and we're happy to do that. In addition to that, we will sit down with any of you anytime and do one-on-ones. We can do small groups. Obviously, we can't violate the open meetings law, but we're happy to sit down with anybody. If you have specific questions about a committee that you chair, whether it's recreation, whether it's drainage, we're happy to talk with you. We're just available, and give us a call. And then just also, as you're doing this, just remember our website has lots of great resources. We've got our old budgets, we've got our old comprehensive annual financial reports, and we also have the link to the Open Finance Transparency website. which when you look at that website, it matches dollar to dollar to the budget, which is great. So it's great to have that online presence of data that matches the budget and everything we're providing to you.
Yeah. So I was gonna, along the lines of that, I was just gonna ask everybody, if you do have specific questions, if you could put them in an email to me with the page number, item number, whatever it is. What I'd like to get away from is redundancy. If people are asking the same questions, and I'll take it upon, me and Pat will do it. We'll look at all the questions and make sure any redundant ones before, I don't want them having to answer questions twice. And then if y'all want to submit those questions over the next week or 2 weeks and we get those together, if we want to have meetings or set up small groups, I can facilitate that with Pat. And, I think it worked good last year. We got a lot of the big questions kind of answered prior to the meeting, which is, great, getting questions answered before meetings to just have that out of the way, so.
And that's a great point. I think our goal would be that we make sure we answer all your questions before the 17th, obviously. So you don't have to come to that meeting with questions still in your mind. We can take care of all those before.
Right. Councilman Robert.
While we're here, would you mind just go ahead and reading the budget?
Sure. We'll start on page 1.
That's all. Sure.
So for this item, if anybody doesn't have any more questions.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposed and amended budget.
Well, do we have the 2022 budget, amended budget?
I think it's within this one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, the numbers are, if you look at the, yeah.
The amended 2022 and the 2023 projected are included.
So we're approving that now?
This is a motion to approve forwarding it to the full council for introduction of ordinance.
In order to meet the time frame for the
For both of them. For the 2022 amended and the 2023, we would read the amendment, we would read the ordinance containing the budget, if you remember the last couple of years, how fun that was. That's just approving it to move to the full council for the introduction of the ordinance. Because we have to introduce it and then we have to pass it.
And Patrick, December 1st. It needs to be fully adopted by the council?
Before December 1st.
If it's not,
the deadline.
it goes.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't have a chance to question or change it if that happens.
That's why we typically do it the second meeting in November, because it's a regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay.
And that way
So we have time. We have plenty of time to review and ask.
You have plenty of time, even though it'll go to council to have that first reading. It's going to sit until the 17th, because you have to do the public notice, so that we can have the public hearing on the 17th, then we can actually adopt it.
But it only says presentation on here. We don't need to approve anything, huh?
You do need to.
No, we have to approve it to move it to the full council for the reading of the ordinance.
But I'm just saying it doesn't have it on the agenda.
Yeah. We'll amend the agenda.
Don't have it on what agenda?
You have presentation on it.
No.
Oh, I don't. So does it have to say?
Well, if
Is
we're
that-
approving it, it's got to say we're approving it.
Yeah, technically.
I agree. I think
Yeah.
that's technically correct.
Yeah. I didn't even catch that.
What did it have last year? I don't know.
I would have to, if we want to make absolutely sure, I think
That's how it was last
Can
year.
we just amend the agenda now, just to be sure, and then pass it?
we can amend with unanimous.
Make a
Okay.
motion to amend the agenda to say approve the 2022 amended and 2023 budgets.
No, it's not.
It's not a motion to approve the budgets.
You're
It's
not approving it.
Yeah, it's a motion to move it to full
Move it
council.
to full council, so,
To
what
ask
she
for
said.
introduction.
Yeah.
Yeah, we typically don't put all the extra language on the finance agenda,
I
because
don't think we do.
we're sending it to the council for introduction.
Yeah, so
And
we're
the
not
council
approving the
actually
budget.
We're just introducing, so
So you're recommending introduction to the
Yeah.
council.
Amendment to recommend introduction to the council for 22 and 23.
Time before the council. Usually it's final approval in November.
I am a little concerned that the agenda says presentation.
Well,
Can
that's why I
we
just
vote
made that
on it?
amendment. and
Yeah, that's what he's.
We need to vote on it to see if we get a
I don't
second.
know if technically we're supposed to.
This is what was on the
No, we
agenda
can change
last
the
year.
agenda.
It
This is
was
what
just like
this is
this.
what we did last year.
It's always been
Okay.
that way.
Because we're not approving the amendment, we're just suggesting, we're almost suggesting that Councilman Cagnolati introduce the ordinance at the next meeting.
Okay.
It'll be on the agenda for introduction,
Okay.
if that's what they want.
So there's no action to be taken then, so we're good.
Well, no, we still have to make a motion to introduce the ordinance at the next council meeting.
No, I'm saying tonight. So-
No, that's it. We're just, if y'all are okay with it, I think, Chase, you made the motion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to present the 22 amended and 2023 proposed be forwarded to the council for consideration.
Hold on, I'm gonna word it differently. I got it, Dawn. So I need to entertain a motion to approve forwarding this to the full council for introduction of the ordinance at the October 20th council meeting.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I second that.
you're making that motion.
Well, you got it written down what you want exactly. I think I pretty much said the same thing. Let's see.
Well-
A motion to approve forwarding to the full council for introduction of ordinance at the October 20th council meeting. That is my motion.
Okay.
I guess I'll still second it.
All right, second by Councilman Robert. Any questions or objections? Hearing none? You need to ask a question, Councilwoman Casso?
I'll speak to Patrick about it, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, well, hearing none, that will move to the full council for introduction of the ordinance at the October 20th meeting. 6B, financial update. I was going to ask one other thing. Can you take that presentation and email it to all of us? Especially everyone, so they're the ones that are not here.
Yes, can do that, and also so everyone knows, now that we've presented it, tomorrow morning we'll put the draft budget on the website.
Okay. Can you add some of your PowerPoints to the finance page? I mean, I think you've spent so much time. They're so informative. No, I'm serious. I think the general public would benefit from seeing them.
We can talk to Brandon about, putting those next to, or, in line with all the other documents. We
Yeah,
can
just maybe an
do that.
icon that, kind of, name it whatever you want, but I think that would be helpful. Does anybody have any questions on 6B on open finance?
Bring Brandon some food when you ask him. He's always happy. To make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Councilman Melancon, second by Councilman Cagnolati. Any objections?